Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Gaslit Truth Podcast. You know me, Therapist Jenn, here with the woman who can speak 18 languages. That would be you, Teralyn.
Oh, I can?
She
That's
can now, just so you guys
interesting.
know. I made that up. Sounds good, doesn't
Okay,
it? Okay.
completely.
We have a special guest today with us, too, as well, Miss Annalie Howling. We are going to roll her in a moment and talk about how fantastic she is. Before we do, we want to just put our little shout out to all of our listeners that are out there. Please make sure that if you're liking us, click subscribe, take those little stars, tell us what you think, because we really want to know what's going on. Maybe check all of them, because I don't know about you guys, but my hair is looking real good today. So I would like extra stars for that.
Okay.
Okay. And so please subscribe. You guys know where to find us. We are on all the places, right? All the social medias. You can hit us out on Facebook, and we are on Instagram, and we are on YouTube. We have all the things. And for those of you that really want to just reach out and tell us your stories or give us some feedback about how it's going on old fashioned way, you can always DM us or send us a email at thegaslittruthpodcast@gmail.com. So please make sure that you do all those things. And I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Teralyn so that she can introduce our esteemed guest today.
All right. Well, we would love to welcome Annalie Howling. So I'm just going to read the bio because I'm terrible at memorizing things about people. Annalie is a highly sought after speaker, trauma specialist, and elite performance coach. With over 20 years of experience, Annalie has worked with elite performers from the worlds of sports, business, and the arts. From self-made billionaires, ex-special forces, PGA Tour golfers, England and Chelsea footballers, and Hollywood actors to her influential social media presence, Annalie's captivating approach is in high global demand. Welcome, Annalie.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you
like
so
she's
much.
something special. Like there's something.
That must feel so good to hear that every time someone reads that. It
Do you
must
know
just be
what?
like,
Yeah, I should have that on loop when I'm not having a good head. Eh? Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you really should. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
All right,
Okay.
Annalie, I would love to hear the story of you for our listeners, how you got to where you are today. I know that you've been interviewed a jillion times. So if you'd like to expand on what you normally say, we would love to hear it.
Thank you. Yeah, we obviously just firstly, thank you both for having me on. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited to be connecting. And we just talked off air about the mischievous sort of shared energy. So I'm looking forward to where this might go and using that as an invitation to sort of dance into a space that maybe I haven't. And in the background, I'm working on something at the moment where I'm kind of doing a lot of reflection on stuff, including things that I've been through. So what's the story of me? Incredibly violent childhood, always told that I wasn't enough mentally and physically, treated very poorly by my father. My mother colluded, so I was in a deeply unsafe environment. I now recognize that I sought financial security through work, and I had a burnout because of that, because I was obviously just trying to, I now appreciate, outrun my trauma. And I felt that by pushing myself through a very elite corporate career would do that for me. And this was, we're probably similar-ish ages, like pre any kind of work from home or flexi working. It was,
Sure.
be in the city at 8 a.m, finish your job at 3 a.m because you're entertaining clients, and you go again because you're apparently so lucky because you get to go out every night with people that you hate, who touch you up at bars, who touch my body, who have a boss stood there telling me to go along with it. So probably spent a lot of time in the fawn trauma response as well. Had a burnout. Got, thankfully, a friend of mine had just begun coaching. Coaching was super weird and woo in the UK at the time, and but
It can be still super
it
weird and
can.
woo. Like,
I can attest to that. But it was
yes.
particularly weird and woo at the time. Like Wendy Rhodes had not come and done a kinky thing on Billions to help us all out, the performance coaches of the world. So yeah, it was transformative. I had a guided visualization, and it connected me to a place that I hadn't yet understood. And felt what was possible. And I think on reflection, I hadn't really felt there was much hope of an alternative. And you go very far down a path, right? And you're told you're successful, and you get all the rewards and the Range Rover and the nice house and the handsome husband and all this stuff. And you're told how lucky you are. And I felt like shit, and my body felt like shit. And I thought I had all these various things wrong with me physically. And it turned out the only thing that was wrong with me was the life that I was trying to force myself into. So
Okay, well,
there you
hold
go.
on.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, all right, she's a fast talker, and
This is fantastic.
this
I'm
is
already like,
fantastic.
it's
I don't know if you know much about Jen and I, except we both did the same thing. Like we both did the same thing, and we call it like making the courageous choices that you need to make, but most people are too scared, unwilling to make those changes to change your life. Like we look for other venues, like a pill, right? Like we look for a solution in a bottle, various bottles, you know, but we don't look to make that big change. So I really want to talk about when you pivoted into that, like making that change, what was that actually like for you? Because I know for Jen and I, it was serious, it was contemplative, and then it was freeing suddenly. Like, so what
Yeah.
was it like for you when you actually made the pivot and leading up to it? Because I know when we talk about it now, it's like, yeah, I did this thing and then we move on, but I want to talk about that because I think there's so many listeners that are like just on that cusp of like, I know I need to do something, but I'm too afraid to do it. So I think it's cool to listen to the 3 women who have done just that. So maybe we can provide some insight and hope to people there.
Sure, I will actually, if it's okay, she
Yeah.
says, proceeding until she's apprehended, talk about another time, just breaking rules. That's my MO.
Well, that's what we're about anyway. So go
Okay,
ahead.
I
Yeah,
figured you two would be okay with it.
whatever.
But I want to do it in service of your audience because I think that's a really amazing question that you just asked. And the biggest pivot, I think, in my life really was leaving my marriage, was choosing to leave my marriage. And I spent months and months going through, and your listeners and my audience and people will all resonate with this, trying to find anything else but that as the answer. Anything other than that, right? And there's the elephant in the room, there's the things under the rug, and you can no longer like even walk around them, and you're looking for anything but that truth. And that truth just gets louder and louder until you can't ignore it. And I'm quite a spiritual person, but I wasn't at the time, and there were just all these things kept happening, and signs, and a bloody Queens I want to break free literally used to stalk me. I'm not even joking. Like
I
anywhere
believe
went,
it.
anywhere I went, it would just come on, and you're like, not now, not now.
Stop it. I can't hear this
Please.
anymore.
I'm just, like literally like la la la, like block it
Yeah.
out. So like I was trying to do anything other than face the truth of my situation. That's the same for when I had to leave my corporate career and face my burnout. It's the same for some friendships and definitely other relationships that have not served me. And so to speak to your audience, the pivot has come when I think probably you could say, well, you exhausted all other avenues. I was exhausted. I was so exhausted, and you're kind of holding up like everything. You feel like Atlas, you're trying to hold everything up. And at one point, something happens, and you just go, fuck it, I'm going to put this down and just see, even if it's just a little bit. I'm just going to take one thumb off or one finger. And to me, that was telling a friend. So I did a really great job. And especially when you're a coach, you're really good at getting other people to talk. So a great trick when you're not willing to be vulnerable or say what's happening is someone's like, how are you? Yeah. Oh my God, how is your job? How is the kids? How's this? You just get someone else talking all the time. And so, because I won't lie, I don't like lying. So but I wouldn't tell someone the truth, and withholding the truth is, it's another way of just not being vulnerable. And I was holding all of it in, and just at one point, I think that vessel just overflows, and so the pivot has always been not some probably grand thing, but so courageous. It took so much courage to look in the eyes of one of my friends and be honest, and be actually honest and say, do you know what? It's not great actually. And then, because also that by saying that thing out loud, whatever it's about, really things have to change from there.
Yeah, I can't unsay it, right? You
Right.
can't
And
unknow
nobody can
it.
unhear it either. Like
Yeah.
your friends
Yeah.
can't unhear that
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
anymore, you know. And then did the Queen song begin to play again one more
Yeah, the
time?
Queen song, yeah,
Yeah.
then I had like a flash mob follow me.
Yeah.
Like,
We're doing the thing.
oh
Right,
my
exactly. Now, okay, we're gonna have to figure out how to get some Queen song
Yeah. Well,
in this
yeah, we're
episode.
we're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
bring that into
Yeah.
the deliverables for this.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
not an issue at all.
very triggering for me, but yeah, let's carry on.
Yeah.
When you said something, Annalie, so there's a lot of similarities. I think that we have, even the three of us, and personally for myself, when you were just talking, I was thinking about. I once had somebody very recently say to me, who knows me well, when you're done being stoic, fucking let me know, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're done acting like you've got it all together, when you're holding up all the things, right, as you were describing, right, like when you're done doing that, Jen, let me know. And it was a friend of mine that I didn't have to, a very close one, right, who I finally got to a space where I could be vulnerable enough with and say those things. But it's a very, when you were speaking, it's a very tough space to be in when you finally pivot from that and let that down. Okay.
Mhm.
And just finally go, okay, it's not good. My marriage is not good. I can speak for myself. I am burned out from working. I am drinking all the time, right?
Mm.
My health is shot. I'm not there for my children anymore as I should be. All of those things that you hold, and when you're talking about just slowly taking a finger off, right? And it really is almost like it's scary because it's like, well, who the hell am I then? It's like,
Mm.
and I don't know if you experienced any of that, but I mean, even for me, with some of the things we were talking about, a career and walking away from a career, and I was doing all the things and I was moving up the ladder and all the things, but to walk away also required for me to put a finger off and actually consider what it could be like and what life could be like. However, with that has come this like, well, who the hell am I now thing? Because you're so used to being that person, having that the presentation, what you show outwardly for people, at least for me, was very similar to that. I had all the things, the house, the car, the 2.4 kids, the all the things, that the career, the benefits, the friends, all the things, and to not have that was scary because, well, who the hell am I when that's all gone?
Mm.
Like, who am I when you wash all that away? What's left then? Let alone somebody, who is also been medicated for many, many years too. So you start to remove these layers, and it's a scary space to be in when you start to pivot.
Yeah, totally. And it's really courageous, like, to say to your audience everything you're naming there, and people are going to be listening to what I said as well and just going, I don't know how to do this, to even like open it up a tiny bit, and just to sort of say to people, like, being really courageous is just like 5%, 2% to
One
someone you
finger.
trust. Yeah,
One
right,
finger.
exactly. Like,
Mhm.
that's all, just to start somewhere. And the things that I've noticed is those relationships, as I'm sure we'll speak to, and you have, like, even us sharing this together now, like, we didn't know each other before this, but suddenly there's a connection between us, and a depth and a care, a genuine care of, like, I want to make sure that you're okay. And I'm sure the same for me. There's just, we're walking around wearing masks because we think we're so shameful and so disgusting and so broken. And then, so what we're doing is we're trying to present this version of ourselves to be liked and obviously not be rejected. And then, but we're denying ourselves genuine connection as well. And it's really sort of on the other side of my shame. It's really shown me, who I want to be with, how I want to be, like, and I'm not just going to use like coachy talk, like how I want to show up, but I mean it. Like, I keep my circle quite small, and I'm quite unhinged in my personal life. Like, really, I'm quite unhinged, and I love that.
What does that mean to you?
Let's
define that. Let's define that.
You bring it up.
That's a coffee table book. That's a Netflix
It is.
original.
It is. It is.
But I enjoy just having my full. I'll tell you what it means to me. It means not second guessing. Like, oh, should I have said that? Or can I do this? Or, will I be judged? Like, so I keep my circle and people around me that genuinely support me and will call me out on my shit, right? But, like, genuinely want to support my full expression. And that has also been a really positive thing on the back of the pivot, and then on the back of the discovering who am I without these structures.
I find it, and I'm going to simplify some of that decision making. I talk about it like this. Like there's really three things for any decision that we have in life, and we can either accept it for what it is, change it, and usually that's change something about us within it, or leave it behind. And at the beginning of this conversation, you're like, nobody wants to leave it. Like nobody. Anytime I bring it up in session, I'm like, well, we can accept it, change it, or leave it. Well, I'm not going to leave it. So I need to learn how to accept it. And I'm like, I go, you want to learn how to accept like not
Misery.
having pleasure? Like, yeah, I mean,
It's
I'm not
accept
sure how
misery.
can help you accept misery, suffering, but obviously if you accept these things, you're not supposed to be in misery or suffering, right? But that is a hard thing. And so it's hard to be like, why on earth, especially women, do we want to sit and accept our misery as being the truth of our lives from here till the end?
Yeah.
And I think we get stuck in these ideas and ideals of what things should be. And when we present ourselves in these certain ways, like it's hard when you're like, okay, yeah, everybody thinks I have it all. Everybody thinks I have it all together. Everybody thinks that everything is going well, but you're like, but it's not. So now I'm stuck in this loop of I have to keep that going or step out and blast myself basically and be like, all right, this was all just a lie. This was not
Smoke
my
and
truth
mirrors.
at all. It was
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors the whole
Yeah.
time until I could no longer tolerate it. And are you going to be with me or are you going to be against me right now? Right.
Mm.
So we fear this judgment,
Yeah.
but usually the judgment isn't there. At least the judgment with the people that actually love us and
Yeah.
are true to us, it's never there. But the perception of that judgment exists all the time in our decision making to the point where we don't want to make those hard decisions,
Right.
and hard decisions, whether it's a relationship, a job, just something that you're not doing in your life that's working for you. Changing is the hardest thing until it's not. Until it's not, like I think we work it up into being these like, this is going to be the biggest, hardest thing I've ever done. And then you do it. And I remember making the change and like instant relief. It was like the anxiety that I had melted away. It was gone. And I'm like, this is like magic. And I'm like, wait a minute. Making change is like magic. Yes, it is. Who
I
knew?
did a big post this week on exactly that. I love what you just said.
Wow.
And we had to be a bit careful because it might have sounded like someone had a really good poo. And it was like the relief comes after the release.
Yes.
Well,
Whereas we had
that's
we were
true
like,
too.
oh, we need to maybe like change, like, and it was like, trust me. And it could still work for that. Or obviously
Yep.
some lovely, delicious pleasure,
Yes.
So like the relief comes after the release. But that was so true to me. And like, I think the caption that I wrote was around exactly what you were saying. And I try and talk to people about this really honestly. And I love that you're both doing this as well, because the most anxious I have ever felt is in the place before I made the choice. I'm not saying it wasn't tricky to go through a divorce, and I did it on lockdown and homeschooling and single parenting and obviously no family support and all the rest of it. But that was challenging, but I never felt that level of anxiety again. Anxiety about different things in different ways, but that perpetual consistent, like it's the Carl Jung, what you resist persists, and my God, did it persist, and it persisted all the time. And then when I made the choice and when I made the decision and it happened, like I say, yes, there were some challenges and some difficulties, but they were much more surmountable, and it just did not wear away at me. And the wearing away at me, which is sort of what I heard about you as well, my mental health, but my soul was like on a cheese grater, and there is only so much more you can take. And you don't appreciate, maybe we all obviously in any kind of relationship, we sort of, you don't like mushrooms or whatever, like we make a few nice little accommodations.
Yes.
But I think in some circumstances when and you're maybe not self-betraying either, because you're doing it because someone else is really manipulative or whatever, but you're just doing anything to not do the thing. You're doing anything to make this thing work.
All
you're doing
the things,
anything, exactly like you say.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to stop it, so tell me how. I had one fairly, I'm not going to not do that, so tell me how I can be in this unbelievably toxic situation. You're
Yes.
like, right.
Yes. Like that is the hardest part with clients, like when we're working with them. And I can't, I'm like trying to, and I'm very candid, right? Like, I mean, how I talk here is how I talk in therapy, right? It's just always been my truth forever, even in all the years I've been doing therapy. And I will say to people, you're here asking me to help teach you how to stay in this miserable, toxic spot. is that what you're really asking me to do? Because I'm going to meet you where you're at, but I'm also going to tell you that I don't think that might not be the best, right? Like, is that the best? Are you willing to look at other opportunities, other alternatives? Like, are you willing to look at something else? And it's oftentimes
No.
like, no.
No.
But here's the deal too. When I think back, for myself even too, like the idea of, like, you could see it another way. Like, it's like these little signs and messages come, but you do ignore them because you don't want to look at that. Like, you don't want to look at what it's like to have to divorce someone you've been through, right? You don't want to look at the father of a child not being there, right? Like, that all seems heart-wrenching, impossible. So I will endure. I've had clients say this to me, and I have done it myself. I will continue to endure and suffer what is happening for the sake of my children. I will continue to endure the sake of what is happening for our business, our family. There's so many pieces, right, that are so big to people that they're not going to give up because it would harm the child. It would harm a family business. It would harm a status in the community. You kind of just touched on that a little bit when you were going through and talking about all the things, right? Like all of the shiny, sparkly, prestigious things that I don't know if you could talk at all about that, but I think that resonates a lot with people, because that giving that up, to even think about giving up that image, is detrimental.
It's very much to a lot of people. I agree, and it becomes so. To me, there's a couple of things in that, and I'm just reminded. My daughter recently moved up to big school, so we left her previous one last summer, and one of the mums came up to me at the very end on the last day, and she said, "Annalie, I just wanted to say to you, I really admire the way that you've done this and the way that you've kind of transitioned out of the marriage, so that you just really own your own integrity." She said, "And I really admire that. And I wanted to tell you for a while." And she kind of like, did it a bit shyly, and it was just a really special moment. And I thought, okay, there's me and there's this image that we all have in our heads and like fitting in. And actually that lady's really looking at me going, I wish I had the balls, I wish that, and I was given this very good piece of advice as well. And it was incredibly true. And I'm glad I was told it before, that the people that you think are going to be there, not all of them will. However, there are people that you never, ever expected that will step in for you in a way that you could never have imagined. And that was both of those things were entirely true. There were people that I really thought the invitations would still be there, and like the kindness and what have you. And so exactly to your point, some of that judgment, 100% there. Like, I mean, there's still a bit, I think, that, I think some people still think I'm going to go and steal their husbands and stuff, whatever. I think they still assume that, you're like, I don't know, a single woman about town or something.
I know. I saw some cougars on some of your stuff, and I was like, okay, I see
tigers
that.
or whatever it is.
Yeah,
tigers.
I am an overtly sexual woman, and that's something as well that I will not apologize about. So, as part of my journey to myself and looking for things that I could integrate to save my marriage, I found out a huge amount of things about myself, and one of which is how important my sexuality is to me. And I'm quite unapologetic about that, and I wear that quite overtly, and that's just a big part of who I am. And so I think that can be triggering to people as well. Obviously, everyone's in different situations. So that there can be, we're all triggered by things. But to reassure people listening, the people that stepped in for me and how they did when they held their hand out to me, and the things that they offered me and my daughter, were unbelievable and not things that I could have imagined. And the people that have subsequently entered into my life, like I have an amazing relationship, it's incredible, and so all of these things now that have happened in the right time that wouldn't have been available to me before. But some things will be moved out of your path, and be grateful that they went, because they're not the people that were going to have your back then or in the future.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like the false like relationships, the ones that were actually built on things that weren't real.
Yeah.
When you talk about the people that weren't there for you, right? Like the ones you thought would continue to be there,
Definitely. I mean, we're mirrors. Like, obviously, you both know this so well. And there are a lot of people that like to be around you when you're weak and low. There are a lot of people that like to trade on gossip, like a stock exchange, that they want to. I mean, I have heard stories about me at parties I haven't been at, you know?
Sure.
Like, so because people want to start trading things, or yeah, like I think that because it's I think there's many reasons people would do that, but that's also not the kind of person I would choose to associate with, and I would rather find out early. But it's shocking and it's hurtful, especially when it's a friend that you had confided in and you felt you had some, really good quality and trust and care between a person, especially female friendships, because we do tend to share a lot and really open, and we learn to become vulnerable. We're learning to open up, we're learning to say the things we feel ashamed about, and then it really is very painful when some of those come to an end and you find out that actually that person was never cheering for you in the first place. They either preferred you when you were down, and I've had lots of people that don't support my work, like don't outwardly cheer for me, like they're not really that pleased for me, because I think potentially it's mirroring something that they're not happy with within themselves. Or they're just not here for that, and I'm not their cup of tea, and all of that is fine, because the people that are meant to be around me and continue to sort of enter into my life as I'm transitioning into other phases. And again, I'm sure you two can speak to this, like that was a transition. And in team and systems coaching, which is like a triangle for anyone listening, we always say you start in the primary and you have to cross the edge into the secondary. But as soon as you're there, you're in another primary. There's another edge to cross. So there's always,
it never ends.
right. There's always, and it's just how you get used to change. And I think that this is sort of all informed where I hope I'm kind of getting a bit closer to surrender, non-attachment. I'm very spiritual, sort of very into the holistic space as well. And I guess you'd call it rolling with the punches a bit better. So when someone is swept out of my life, almost like, and sometimes it's been very, I'm going to use the word violent, because like emotionally it's felt quite violent. There's been a real breach of trust. There's been maybe some really horrible language and things that have happened. And it feels like it's a rupture. It feels like a rupture to you, to the system, maybe broader in social circles. But every single time that's happened, the universe has done me an absolute solid. And you may not know why at the time.
Right?
Yeah, you may not know why at the time, but you will find out.
Somebody once told me, in order to attract, you must repel. And I love that, because when first getting into this more holistic mental health space, there is a lot of pushback. There is a lot of pushback. And I've had other old colleagues reach out to me telling me things like, you're going to ruin your reputation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Violent, right? Like, so like, the very thing that I want is a good reputation, right? So it's like pulling my heart out, but doing that, I feel like that repelled the people that don't need to be near me. They don't think like me. Not that you have to think like me to be near me, but they don't want to believe anything different than what is in front of them. And so repelling them actually opens windows and doors for the right people to come in that help you out and can help you think differently again too. Like, I feel like life is like this ever-changing thing, like those triangles you're talking about. Like, it's just, oh, now I'm in the next triangle, here I go, like it's just constantly. And I feel like, I mean, Maslow's hierarchy, self-actualization on the top, what we strive for all the time, but we always want to get there without doing any of the work in between, and and I wanted to talk about when you said, like, what did you say? You embrace you didn't say sexuality, like femininity, feminine spirit, like, a sexual being, whatever. So many people, I think when my first question was, why do you think that is? And I know it's projection. It's a lot of projection, but I'm like, I truly don't understand it. I really don't understand why people do that, except for their own, keeping themselves back, not pursuing their own pleasure. And I feel like we live in this world, I'm just going to speak generally of women, right? Where our own sexual pleasure and expression is so muted. Like, you have to be this thing, you have to fit into this box. Your pleasure isn't worth anything. As a matter of fact, we're going to medicate your sexual pleasure out of you And then you're going to disparage, men, partners, whatever, when they want you to be a sexual person, as if your sexuality and sexual expression doesn't matter to you anymore. It shouldn't matter. And I'm like, but it does matter, actually. It does. It's part of your pleasure principle. It's part of pursuing a pleasure-filled life. And, but we've been taught, like, we cannot, no, don't, you're too much.
Gotta quell that. Yeah,
Much.
she's a
Yeah.
whore.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, like it is.
Yeah.
You even step out of this little comfort zone of something, and people look at it and go, "Oh, that is so what? Or how risque? Or how could someone present themselves? How could they carry themselves in that way and dress that way?" And yes, it's like an unaccepted thing, in so many different, so many different ways that you just need to shush that, bring that down a little bit.
Totally. I'm so passionate about this area of work. I mean, you two must get this as well. So obviously, like any kind of therapy, client relationship, no judgment, wanting the best for the client and whatever we're doing.
Mhm.
I have so many women come to me and they start off, and I know what they're going to say, that they're having an affair, right?
Oh,
Like, I know,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I know what they're going to say. And this is, I mean, men as well, but like and they feel
Mhm.
so much shame. And they feel alive. That's the aliveness is usually the number one reason
Yes.
given. And I my work is only that they're happy. I have no no investment in whatever the end result may be.
Right.
Like obviously as long as they're safe and all the rest of it, So, but it's the story before that fascinates me as to either the relationships they have been in the past. Obviously, if there's been any abuse at any point as well, we need to look into that and trauma. But all of us have been told to be a good girl and be perfect. And you can't possibly come unless you cleaned your house first and you've made him dinner and you've got your little apron on, your perfect heels and everything else. And like you've done all these things for him first. And, how can you possibly just take pleasure? How can you just receive? And I've been on a myriad of courses, female sexuality, pleasure, all sorts of things, breath work, things like that. And a lot of this was when I was trying to find a pathway towards connection, intimacy, anything to save my marriage.
Yeah.
So what I found in that was a lot about myself, but what I also found was some universal truths about women. And the two things that came up time and time again: I don't know how to ask for what I want. I literally don't know how. I had a message about it yesterday. I had a lady ask me yesterday. I've been with him for 8 months. I love him. It's amazing. I think she travels quite a lot for work. I come home. I think he's going to, sweep me off my feet. We're going to have passionate romantic sex. But instead he's cleaned the house and we watched a movie. And I'm like, well, have you
Darn
spoken to
him
him
for cleaning the house. And
him. I'd be climbing him like
exactly. That is
Oh
the
my
hottest
gosh,
thing
right?
I've ever seen. Like,
So sexy.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I said to her, have you spoken to him about, the first thing? She's like,
No.
I couldn't because I don't want to hurt his feelings and I don't know how to approach it. And this is such a common thing. I just want to say to anyone listening, like universally, there's this huge reticence to be seen as too much, I think, and also judgment, cultural conditioning, religious things, like being seen like a slut or unsatisfied or any of these things. But yet that was one. And yet, right. And number two was, and I think I'm taking too long. And that means in any kind of interaction, not just sex, that someone's giving you a massage, some intimate touch, like someone wants you to have a bath and a glass of wine while they make it. You feel like you have to earn it. Well, I can't do that unless I've done something for you. I have to do this for you first. Like I can't. It's almost going back to like, kind of the place of just receiving unconditional love just as we are. But I haven't got makeup on. I haven't worked out today. I didn't get a wax. Like there's this narrative that's going on in your head all the time. And what that's doing is obviously just checking you out of anything pleasurable. So after this huge body of work that I did, I even kind of reframed how, maybe I'm in a bit of a thought spiral or something. And even rather than, I know that shoulding is my inner critic going should. So I know not to should myself. Should, in my view, is a swear word.
All over yourself.
She's speaking DBT right now.
Yeah.
Should all over yourself.
We've got a big pile of shoulds. We try and ignore that. Should is a swear word. But even if I'm like, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? Sometimes I can't get to that. So I ask myself instead, what would give me the most pleasure in this moment? Maybe it's having a coffee and sitting outside without my phone for 10 minutes. Set the alarm, not going to miss anything. Maybe it's changing my day around and taking a walk outside. Maybe it's taking some time for myself and indulging in some pleasure. Maybe it's designing buying some beautiful lingerie and planning something with my amazing boyfriend. Like maybe it's that, but like genuinely the most pleasurable thing could be carving some time out for connecting with friends. But that question has changed my viewpoint for a lot of things. But yeah, there is this really challenging space for women where I think we have this monologue that goes off about all the things that we should have done, and and like I say, these two universal truths, and they've come up so many times in so many interviews, and that's where I think we get a bit far from our own shores. And that's where, when maybe somebody comes in from left or from the left or anything, and we believe it's the other, or we believe it's another. And actually I always say, look, they may have turned your light on, but it was your light. We just need to make sure that we're finding a way that you're embodying this. Mine's very overt. That's authentic to me. That's not the same for everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to ask you a question, because there's a word that keeps interweaving itself. Okay. When you're talking here. And I do wonder for you, how about the word shame?
Ooh, that is
okay. Can we put this in here?
Yeah.
And I want you to, because I know that you've spoken. I've seen you've actually put some posts out there that tie a lot of shame work into them. And I myself do, with most of the female clients I have, I do a lot of shame work. And interestingly enough, a lot of that is also connected to with, there's these trauma histories as well.
Of course.
Okay. That teach us, which, whatever you're willing to share, please do, about like, what are the things, right, that you were taught that you needed to be shameful of, that you actually don't need to be, but you were taught that these are things I need to be shameful of. And that comes from our environments, our family systems, being through traumatic experiences when we are younger. Right. But I want to see where you go with that word, because it interweaves so many things here, when you're speaking.
So shame is the kind of thesis of my life, and it's something that I'm investigating very deeply at the moment. It's something I'm working on around female shame, and particularly the lies that shame tells you. So shame lies to us, and you will both know, but shame is actually very hard to put into words. Shame is a felt sense. It's within us. It's I am. And I've used this example before, but I think it's quite helpful. I could say to you both, like, got a daughter, single mom, and I could be like, girls, do you know what? I was a bit ratty this morning. I was rushing to go out the door. Didn't do the best job. Feel a bit bad about it. I don't think I did the best job of mumming today.
Yeah.
That's guilt. Rushed out the door. Didn't do very well. I am a bad mother. That is shame. I'm making it up. I feel nauseous. That is not, I don't believe that to be true about myself. I feel physically unwell. Shame is I am, and I do EMDR. That's one of the piece of work that I do, which is where we go into the worst moment. I work extensively in sexual assault. It's one of the main areas of my work. When I'm working with women in particular that have been victims of sexual assault, they always believe it's usually someone that someone knows in some regard, or there's maybe been alcohol involved, or perhaps there was a kiss earlier in the evening, and they believe there's a grey area that in some way they have contributed, asked for it, in inverted commas. And that is where the shame lives. And shame will take roots in your system, and then it will whisper to you every day about, the I am that I had, my father being very violent. Well, I thought I was so awful and so bad because these people put on this earth to love me, and they told me that as well. So, I must be so terrible and so unlovable that these people that are inherently built to love me, I am bad. So I wore those lenses of shame my whole life and chose relationships from there, jobs from there, anything I did from there, probably disregarding my body in some ways from there. That was shame, the whispering into my ear about how bad I was, and so when I'm working with victims of assault, as I'm sure you both will be, or women that feel ashamed because they are looking to explore their sexual nature that they haven't felt able to in previous relationship or wherever they may be, it's shame. And it's shame is asking them to keep themselves hidden away, and you can't possibly bring yourself out into light. Like the high priestess, Brene
Right.
Brown,
Yep.
Shame, you
Sure.
know, she when she talks about, you know, telling your stories in the light and it can't survive if you name it, there is nothing more true than that. And I have people that have come in, as I'm sure you have, that you're the first person they've told something that they've lived with for
Yes.
35, 40 years sometimes. Sometimes it's to do with a close family member that's still in their family system.
Oh, yeah.
And they feel so ashamed. And it's when you unpack, say, the fawn trauma response and, you know, why would I have done that? Why would I have kissed them afterwards? Why would I have? And it's like, you didn't allow it. But it's shame afterwards that is kind of policing your freedom. And until you find a way to name it, even just to yourself, even just admitting to yourself, even just, you know, working with a mirror or whatever it might be, just to start saying it out loud. But I think I've talked about this before, but I used to self-harm. I used to scratch my face till it bled, and I didn't know I was doing it. How shameful is that? I'm a trauma therapist and a coach. So I could be cancelled, you know, in theory you could be cancelled. Like, how could you, it was a subconscious behavior. I would come round with blood all down my hands, and I was hacking at my face. And it was at a time that I was incredibly stressed and it was going through the breakdown of my marriage. And it was effectively, I now know it was stress and it was a silent scream. And you both know it's me trying to discharge it from my system, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I was so ashamed. And then I had really bad skin, but I didn't have bad skin. I had like claw marks in my face from where I was hacking at myself. So you're wearing more makeup all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the shame of it. And then you can't stop. And then you can't go and get your skin sorted out because then someone will have to see you and see how disgusting and broken you are. That is shame.
Yeah.
And the second that again, it's a bit kind of full circling, which I love. But at the second that I sort of crept a little tiny bit open to someone and spoke a little bit of my truth, shame couldn't hold me back.
Yeah.
And the more and more you do it, I'm trying to be skillful here, but it's a bit like you have Tourette's. Like the more you get it out, like you just can't stop telling people your truth. There is nothing that I am afraid of that someone would find out about me. Not one thing. There's not anything. There's a Carl Jung quote, which I'm going to get probably a bit wrong, but it's that the wise man keeps their shadow out in front because it can never take you down from behind. And I love that. So that
I
to me
didn't
is
know
shame.
that.
I might have got it a tiny bit wrong. And again, I think I heard that from the high priestess herself.
Herself straight from Brené's mouth, probably.
I think it
that
was.
sounds
I
like
think
something
she-
fucking fantastic she would say.
Exactly right. It was the high priestess. So I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that she said it on a Tim Ferriss podcast a few years ago. But I was like, oh my God, that's it. And I was being held back from behind. So by putting it out in front, by even like creeping it open a tiny bit, by telling someone that you trust 0.5%, like we talked about earlier, you'll feel it leave. And when it's gone and you're in a place, that's freedom. Because shame will tell you you're the only one. Shame will tell you that you are broken. And shame will tell you that you have to remove yourself, mask, be perfect, all the fun stuff to, you know, to be able to stay in connection. And it's a lie.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, just talking about shame, like it's a whole body, like closing down, like the shrinking of you, right? Like this shrink. And we talk a lot about like, be your authentic self. And it's so like kitschy and, you know, like authenticity, you know, and really in order to get to that authentic place, it is this outing yourself, you know, and not having the feeling that I'm going to be found out. I mean, that's imposter syndrome too. Like somebody's going to find me out that I'm not who they think I am, you know? So, or you can just step into who you are and let people know who you are. And I think that authentic place is what resonates with most people when you are truly being the authentic version of you and not some social media contrived version of who you want people to see, right? Like there's such a dynamic there that's just hurtful, you know, to you when you do that. So it's very interesting. You did have a quote on here that I wanted to talk about. I think you posted it on your Instagram, and it was set people free from their self-imposed limitations. And that stuck out to me because I think, you know, most of us do impose these limitations on ourselves. They come from somewhere, of course, like, history or whatever, but we never realize that those limitations are then, well, it's like that elephant, when a baby elephant is born in a circus and they put a rope around its leg,
Yeah.
and then it grows up and it still thinks it's chained to the ground. Like, that's the thing, is we don't know when we're imposing our own limitations, when that separates from someone else who imposed limitations, like a parent who's imposing limitations on you. Like, suddenly you don't know that that limitation it's now self-imposed, not imposed by somebody else, and setting yourself free from that. Like, this, I don't know, I really did like this quote. I thought it was great. Would you like to expand on that quote? Set
Seriously, I'm
people
just
free
gonna
from
keep
their
talking.
self-imposed limitations, right? Like, I want to
Well,
hear
I
it.
love it's funny. I love the analogy that you gave, because actually, so yeah, that's it's exactly what you've said is beautiful. But also, I don't know if any of you've seen Harry Potter, but there's the dragon that they shake the thing and it's afraid, and
Yep.
and basically it realizes that it's the one that breathes the fire. And someone said that to me during during a very difficult time in my life, and they were like, "It's like you've forgotten that you're the one that breathes the fire," and I was like, "Oh my God, you're right." And then yeah, like, because exactly to your point, we end up in situations and circumstances and relationships, and sometimes we're happy to accommodate certain things, and then you don't realize it, but you've given little pieces away over time. And when you start reclaiming, it's the reclamation, when you're after these transitions as well, there's quite a lot of reclamation work to do,
Yeah.
to go and find pieces of yourself that perhaps you gave away gladly. Perhaps you've given something away and you get it back and you're like, this doesn't fit me anymore. This actually isn't.
Right.
This, I'm going to put it on a
Right.
shelf as a trinket, and I'm going to remember that time and honor it. But that doesn't fit me anymore. And then like we go to my sexuality. Like I reclaimed this, and it was so all encompassing to me that it was such a huge part of who I was, and sort of what I hadn't honored, and just gave like life force, energy, and everything else, that when I found it and reclaimed it, that was never going. It was never going out of my sight. And then, like I say, a few other things just like trying on a dress didn't suit me, didn't fit me anymore. And the reclamation, this is that's sort of linked to that, the reclamation of self, and just, not easy, like, like don't compare and other people's expectations, but yeah, just make sure that the choices you're making, no shoulds, because that's limitations, that can be imposed by others.
She's shitting all over herself
Yeah,
again.
no more shoulding. And just really leaning into what it means to be your authentic self.
So you're in the mental health space, but you're not a therapist, correct? You're not
I do EMDR therapy. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
qualified to do EMDR with clients, and then the
okay.
coaching side of things.
All right. So what are your candid thoughts about mental health care today? Like the whole mental health care thing. Like, I'd like to know what your candid thoughts are about this.
So I actually come to the States a huge amount, like my big markets in the States, and I reflect a lot.
We're the, yeah,
Big market.
exactly. We are a big
this is
market
it,
of need.
actually, because I reflect
are.
a lot on the differences between the UK. So in the UK, we
Yes.
have a national health service. It's called the NHS.
Mhm.
So what's great about that is we do have, it's like regulated, and there is free healthcare. Now, what's maybe not always great about that is it's, there's obviously waiting lists and things like that. And it's not, there's also a big privilege element in that, because you still need to pay to get kind of the best and what have you. But it's here. And so if anyone is struggling with anything at all, you can go for free, and there'll be CBT, there are EMDR practitioners, there is help available for you for free. And that's great.
So you can go see a mental health therapist or a psychotherapist or receive some CBT, EMDR, all the acronyms that we all do, the DBTs, all the things you can get. You can get that.
You can. And the thing that I noticed about coming to the States is I feel like, I can go to CVS, which, by the way, I love CVS. If CVS would like to sponsor me, I love it.
Shout out to CVS.
There she goes. There we go.
But you can go into, this blows my mind, by the way. I can
shameless
go
promotion. Bring it on, girl. Let's hear it. Come on. You're fine.
I can go into CVS and I can buy pills I cannot get in the UK. Like I can't get like Advil PM in the UK, you know, using
Really?
or melatonin. You can't get it in the UK. I can go into CVS and I can buy a lip gloss, some like sleeping pills and some uppers and some other things, a bloody protein bar and a bottle of wine, right? So
All of it. Yeah.
I can like, but I
That's a
can
problem though.
right. Well, this is
Yes.
kind of this is
That's
kind
crazy.
of my point in that I think that in the States in particular, people are left to try and solve their own problems in such an overly commercialized space that I think it's incredibly challenging to find quality help. I was in LA last March, got loads of clients over. I was doing a lot of work in LA, and I saw one of my British mates there, and I was talking about it. And in LA, the drug problem is quite it's quite acute, and it was very noticeable. It was very different when I was last there. It was quite shocking actually. And he said to me, he said, Annalie, the thing is, he said, the biggest mental health facility in LA is the LA County Jail.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And he said, and otherwise it's rehab. He said, but you have to be incredibly privileged to pay for that. You know, it's $30,000-$40,000 a month. He said, so what's in between? And I was like, oh my God, you're absolutely. And what's in between is people trying to solve, we go a bit Gabor Mate, is people in pain trying to solve their own problem in an entirely kind of overly commercialized space, when I can go and buy all those things in a corner shop, effectively, like what I would sort of term like a newsagent. You know, I can go into like a high street store, buy all of that stuff at once, try and fix my own problem. And where am I going to get honest, good advice that's really not even just going to band-aid me, but actually going to help me? So I feel quite passionately about that. Actually, I've been thinking about it a huge amount. Like, and I did a talk in New York with JB Copeland, who's a big influencer, and we did this really lovely talk. We got we had all these people together in this space, and the way I opened it was we didn't do an introduction to start with. I wrote down things that shame told you, and I stuck it under everyone's chairs. So like, I am bad, I am disgusting, I am unlovable. I put those sorts of things under chairs. And the way that it started was, it was like 2 catwalks rather than audience, and I got everyone to stand up, take a post-it, and they had to look in the eyes of a stranger and say that to them as a you are unlovable, you are disgusting, you know. And people found it so awful, obviously, to do that. You feel so horrible. But the point being, and where we went on to, is we say, how many of those do you say to yourself every single day, and in much worse kind of tone and language and implication? And it opened up a really amazing conversation, and the whole session was just incredible. But I really do think in the States that, like I say, it's that people have commercialized pain, and I think it's wrong.
Oh
yeah, that is a fantastic line. Writing that down.
I'm writing it down. It's going to go on a deliverable.
What you said, you know, both. So Terry and I, both of us worked in prisons for many, many, many years as therapists. Okay. And I just finally left prison about a year ago, after almost 15 years of being in there. And that statement is very real, that these services that are there. They are readily available for the most piece in certain areas of the States. And we do offer those services. And the idea, I've never thought about it from this lens before, in terms of the commercialized piece of people not being able to receive what they need. And so you're left to your own devices to figure out what can I all purchase. I mean, you're left to your devices of the influence that you receive from big marketing. Okay. And you'll see things, and that is going to pull you in a certain direction to go, I will try this, and I will try this, and I will try this, and I'll try this. And the whole time we actually aren't trying to really address the roots of some of what's going on. So it brings people into systems and facilities that there is a revolving door and that they cannot get out of, because it does offer the things that they need, especially here, when those things, there is a price, there is a cost. To receive healthcare here is extremely expensive.
Yeah,
extremely
and it's much
expensive.
cheaper for me to go to CVS.
Exactly. It is. So yes,
wow.
commercializing pain.
Well,
oh my goodness.
So my husband and I were on Laguna Beach a couple of years ago, and you know, I'm just observing, and there was this guy, and he had it right. He had his tent. He had this like little tent thing up, you know, and in the front, he was sitting at a table, and in the front it said "shitty advice, $5." And he had a line. He had a line. Yeah, I know, right? He had a line, and I looked at my husband and I said, I said, I think I found my next career move right here with
Right.
this shitty advice, $5. But
Right.
yeah, I thought that was so funny. That stuck with me years later because I'm like, people don't know what else to do, so they're going to go get shitty advice somewhere, you know.
But
Or
you know, I love what you two are doing, because this is we're being very authentic here and
Mhm.
raw, and it's not pretty or polished, and we're saying
No.
unpopular things that people
Yes.
might not like or be very agreeable and might stick in some people's throats, but it's true. Like, and I love that you're doing that, and you're in this space and you're saying some big, bold, potentially ugly, difficult things, and that's kind of my MO as well, because that will actually help people. And I'm not
Yeah.
here for the pretty perfect clicking, whatever, like, it's because it's not going to do anything. And I really
It
do have
doesn't. Yeah.
I really do have like it really bothers me, it upsets me when people will use privilege when they to commercialize others' pain. And
Yes.
and you must see it all the time, these
Yes.
charlatans in the space that
Mhm.
are literally just creating things. And the thing that upsets me the most about it is the programs that are like $99 and I'll cure your anxiety, download it, click here, right? Now, the reason that upsets me so much is that the people that are downloading it are vulnerable, and they're
They are.
really
Yes.
hurting, and they're
Yes.
really sad. And you both know that for watching 4 videos online is never going to cure a person. It might help. I'm not saying, look, don't get help, don't look at things, but it's on you.
Yes.
Watch things on YouTube, like find it yourself.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
any of these courses that promise you that are highly unlikely to be
Mhm.
personalized enough, or find enough things that you need to help. Okay. And so the worst bit about that for me is these vulnerable people who are in pain are going to do this course that promises you the world, and it's all these people have cured their anxiety, and you do it and you're a fucking failure. So you're like, oh great, well I feel even worse.
Yes.
I
Again.
couldn't even do that.
Yes.
Look at all these
Yeah.
The
people who are
lowest
now-
hanging fruit, and
right,
I
look at
couldn't
all
even
these
do it.
people
Yep.
roller
Mhm.
skating on the beach after they did this course, and here's me.
Yeah.
What a fucking loser.
Yes.
Like I
But
couldn't
that's it.
even do that.
The treatment itself, right? That you chose, whatever you chose to do, it's worse. It's worse
Yeah.
for me. And now I just took the little itty bitty bit of hope that I even had, because I
Yeah.
was sold this
Right.
dream, this damn
Right.
dream that is going to fix something, and it did not work.
Right.
And so
I
then you
think
are more
it's-
vulnerable and you are more low. And that's all we do.
That's not just in the coaching and therapy world. That's also in the medication world too.
Oh,
Like,
fitness,
these meds don't
everything.
even help me.
Yes.
I'm unhelpable.
Yeah.
All the
Same
things.
same
Like,
thing. Yep.
yeah.
Nutrition, the nutrition world, the fitness world, the all of those things. It's this commercializing pain and capitalizing on people's pain, and that it's so much different. It sounds like a little bit here in the States is just a hair different, right? From the UK, right? Even in terms of the resources are a little different, but that premise of what you're talking about. I mean, we have done many episodes here we're going to do some on big food, right? Which people do not want to hear, right? We've done the big marketing ones. We've done the big pharma ones. We've done big psychology. We've done all of those, because it's this truth in which we are handed that is not real. It is not very real in many ways for people, but it fits the box and it's convenient, and people, you said it really well. They come into this because they're very vulnerable. They're in a super vulnerable state. And so we capitalize on that vulnerability. And that's fucking terrible. Like the whole thing is it's just ridiculous. It's all the things that gaslight us, which is exactly the point of this whole podcast, right?
Exactly.
Like it's the lies we tell ourselves and everyone else tells us, right? And so that's beautifully said. Yeah, we're putting that on a deliverable.
Apart from when I get my line at CVS, and then it's the best thing ever.
I can't wait. I'm going to be standing there going, we were at the birth of Anna's line. We were there. We heard it first.
When she created the Advil PM Rose, and it was pre-mixed.
Nice. I love it. All right, everyone. That wraps up another episode of the Gaslit Truth Podcast. And please like and follow, share, comment, all the things. And Annalie's information will be in the show notes for everybody. So it was wonderful talking with you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.